little scary at the end. I made it. Wow. This takes a lot of concentration and a lot of trust is one of the things I've learned. To do what I just did, and you and God are my witnesses, I had to trust my senses, my teacher sitting behind me, my cane, and all of you, actually, and myself. And I want to thank Reverend Davis for being my teacher this morning. I was afraid to even ask GD, because that's what I call him GD, and he calls me BP. I was afraid to ask Gerald to do this with me this summer because it felt way too personal, way too proximate, way too intimate, and also possibly politically incorrect to even think about trying to walk in his shoes. How presumptuous or perhaps privileged of me to even ask him about his blindness and to try on being blind myself. I can't know what it is to be blind or visually impaired. But I boldly stammered out something anyway over the phone about our summer theme being Trading Places and about it being Pentecost Sunday and all, while Gerald patiently listened. The miracle of Pentecost being that somehow people heard the truth. They heard the news of God's unconditional love in ways that they each could feel and understand it to be true. On that day, people who had very little in common found common ground. BP, you've gone too far this time. I imagined GD saying to me. But instead, Gerald started talking and talking faster and faster as he went on telling me about where he is on his journey to independence and autonomy, about the people he has met, his mentors and his teachers, and about people's misconceptions and incorrect perceptions of blindness and people who are blind. The more he talked, the more myths and misunderstandings melted away, and the more I started to see that, well, let's start there. Blind people don't mind sighted people using the words see, look, and watch. In fact, they use the same words because they're the best words to describe their experience. I've been learning to see with a cane instead of with my eyes. And now that I've done what I've done, what you just witnessed, I'm not worried about Gerald falling off the chancel anymore. Although in the past, you may have seen me and others get a little jittery up here just about that. With this cane on the ground, sweeping ahead, we'll feel the drop-off and stop before we fall off. There's a big difference, I've learned, between sighted people and blind people. Sighted people, we're the ones who perceive walking into a wall as a mistake. When I'm walking with a cane, walking into a wall, which has happened around here this week, feels really helpful. Like I've just gathered some really important information. It grounds me, it orients me. I know where I am, and sometimes walls are actually useful. I can walk in a straight line as long as I'm using my cane to follow along the wall. It's sighted people who are embarrassed at seeing a blind person stumble or bump into things or turn abruptly. Blind people don't even notice it. Once we sighted people accept this, we can relax a little bit and interact with blind people a little more. Which is a good thing because trying to avoid blind people, which I catch myself doing still, which is ironically like pretending we don't see them, is pointless and sometimes even dangerous. Instead, letting a blind person know we're here by saying something is much more helpful. For instance, saying out loud, "Hello, I'm standing here to your left, just about a foot away." That helps a lot, helps blind people a lot. They know they're blind and they won't mind. I learned a lot of this at the Center for Rehabilitation Services here in Tulsa, where I went with Gerald. I met and talked with several blind people there. Blind people actually run the place. I was in the minority as a sighted person. A blind young man was behind the counter to greet and guide us. I met and talked with Gerald's technology teacher, who is bilingual in Spanish. He was also born blind. He knows Braille, which he calls a code, not another language, because he's still speaking English. And he teaches people of all ages who are losing or have lost their sight to use cell phones, laptops, Facebook, and Netflix for real. It turns out the blind can lead the blind, despite what it says in Matthew chapter 15, verse 14. Brian, which is this teacher's name, and Gerald also told me about Carrie Supolo. He is blind, and he is a professor of chemistry who invests a lot of his time in education for the blind. Gerald and Brian heard him speak at a conference of the National Association for the Blind, where Supolo said this: "If you have two candidates for a position, and one is sighted and one is blind, hire the blind person, because that person will be the best problem solver, the most creative person on your staff." I don't think I would have believed that before spending time over the last couple of weeks with Gerald. But coincidentally or not, it's true that Gerald's career with the Department of Human Services advanced as his sight diminished over the last decade. Whether we are sighted or not, we are built, we are made to connect and to communicate with each other. When we don't set our expectations too low, we innovate and we adapt. We break through and we do the impossible, which gives me hope when I think of the tremendous challenges we face today. Let me close with this story. Up on the chancel, I've whispered to Gerald over the years, and you may have seen me whispering to Gerald, "I really wish you could see this." For instance, when the cherub choir was walking up to sing with their stoles draped just so over their colorful clothes and party shoes. And time after time, Gerald has whispered back to me, "The way you describe it is enough." I've smiled back, but not really believing him, until finally breaking through to understanding that my describing the world as I see it to him is really all of any of us ever really do. So for the rest of this service, I invite you to close your eyes for much or most of it, and to see with your other senses. And then tell each other and us what you saw anew. We'll press on now with some percussion. Let it rattle through your bones and sink on down to your soul.
Amen. Yeah. I say, I was given the dictum, you have 15 minutes. Siri, set the alarm for 15 minutes. All right. I was welcomed into this world by my parents and 6 siblings. And I must say, I was wanted, even though there was a big gap between the rest of those siblings and me. The doctor who delivered me told my mother, give me this child. You have 6 already. I want this baby boy. And my mother said, after all this labor, are you serious? This baby is going home with me. So I grew up in a household that surrounded me with love and affection. And then they began to see that the baby boy had difficulty seeing. He was running into things. He would get really close in order to peer into whatever he was looking for. And they said, what's wrong? Now, wrong became the adjective to use when describing my behavior. When I was taken to the doctor finally, the doctor said he's nearsighted. We have glasses for him. And so at the tender age of 3 or so, I started wearing glasses. And with that, I started associating seeing with frustration. I never could see really clearly. So growing up playing baseball or playing any kind of ball, the ball is over here, Gerald. What? It became a joke because I couldn't find the ball. I couldn't see it. Or in class, I had to sit in the front row because I couldn't see anywhere in the back. And when I was reading books, even with glasses, I still had to ponder and look closely. So church, frustration and seeing was just part of me. But I grew up in a community that said, you cannot feel sorry for yourself for anything. You live in a world that does not appreciate you. And so by you feeling sorry about anything about you, you give them a head start in putting you down. You are not inferior to anybody. So I grew up with that. My parents, my teachers, everybody around me. So I had to learn how to defend myself against the usual comical taunts and everything. Oh, you got 4 eyes. Oh, you got 6 eyes. Actually, I have probably 32 or even 64 because I have very near blindness in my visual acuity. What did you say? I'm just saying that I agree with you that I wear glasses in order to correctly see fools like you. I learned how to do that, church. My time is slipping. I learned how to do that, church, because I had to survive. But I didn't like it because it was frustrating. Until finally I got to college, where I took matters into my own hands, and I got a referral to a doctor who made contact lenses. I went to him. He said, "Let me make your contacts. You will be my crowning achievement in my profession. I have never seen anyone with such poor eyesight as you. Let me make those contacts, please." I said, "Absolutely, let's go." So he made those contacts. That man was Dr. Paul Leggett. And some of you all may have realized that he was your doctor, maybe not. He's passed on now. But Paul Leggett made my first pair of contacts. And he tried very hard to make sure they adhered, because in those days you had glass contacts, And so I did, and I lost them, and he'd make some more, and I lose those, and it was difficult, but we made it. And then the technology increased, and I got those gas permeable lenses, right? And he told me, "Gerald, you can never get soft lenses that were also coming out because your visual need is so strong. You can't do that." Frustration, church, frustration. But I kept on going until finally I had I enjoyed those days because those days were full of almost seeing. I was driving and I was doing all the things other folks did. Didn't play baseball, but that's all right. So finally, though, the reckoning occurred when I discovered that the reason I had poor eyesight was not that I was nearsighted, but I have a condition that ultimately leads to blindness. Now, when I discovered that, I was married, we had just had our first child, and I said, "What?" And the doctor said, "Yeah, blindness." I said, "Well, when am I going to go blind?" He said, "Who knows? But it's going to happen. You will eventually go blind." So there I was with a 6-month-old child, a new wife, and we were living in Muskogee, and what to do. Now, this is about breakthrough. So I'm going to tell you what breakthrough meant to me in those terms. Breakthrough meant that I could not feel sorry for myself with a 6-month-old baby and a new bride. I could not feel sorry that I was working in a very demanding occupation that said, "Go out and investigate." I could not feel sorry, church, because I knew it was up to me to make this thing happen. So I learned how to deal with frustration early, so I dealt with it now. I said, "Okay, I'm going to make this happen." And I did. So slowly but surely, the eyes did dim because the doctor was right. That didn't stop me because, as Barbara said, I started advancing through the ranks of DHS until I was an assistant county director, and I applied to be a county director in Tulsa. I was accepted, and there I was, blind and able. All right? So here we go. Here we go. So now we have 2 children. We're living now in Tulsa, and we're trying to do the best we can with what we have and enjoying life at the same time. Church, it wasn't easy, but technology helped. I had assistive technology at work, I had assistive technology at home, and I was able to do the things I needed to do in order to keep my job and keep my family fed. So now we're moving into post-work. I am retired from Oklahoma Department of Human Services, and now I'm for real blind because it slowly made its connection. So now I don't see you all out there the way you see me. But what I see, I hear. I know that you're full of energy and that I'm part of you. So the breakthrough, church, was being able to make the things that I thought were a hindrance into something to remind me I can. Church, let me tell you, the National Federation of the Blind that was referenced earlier, it's an organization that was founded in 1940 for blind people. It's of the blind. It's not for. It's blind people taking care of themselves. The idea of the National Federation of Blind says that too often people think of blind people as helpless. And so they need care and custody. But blind people are not helpless. We can be helpful if you step back and let us do it. It is important for you, church, to understand, just like all folks who are put in a position that says you are less than. Understand that we are not less than anything. We can do whatever you can do, and it's going to be a little different, but we can get it done. The bottom line to this is what the National Federation says. The president, the founder and president said at the 25th anniversary of the founding, he said, blind people in the United States of America have been taken care of, but not represented, have been protected, but not emancipated, have been told to be seen and not heard. Does that sound familiar? Here is a blind, black, and bald man standing before you, and you can say, oh my goodness, he's blind. Oh my goodness, he's black. Oh my goodness, he's bald. And all of those things equal inferiority. I am not and will not stand for that. So I want you all, I think 15 minutes have gone by. What time is it, baby? 10:40. I got 5 more minutes. All right. I want all of you all to understand that it's not just blind people that you think you need to help. Start thinking about all those folks who you say, yeah, I wish I could. I wish they knew how to, whatever it is. You put them in a place. Stop that. Because it is not helpful to be told you are helpless. That's not helpful. And so I'm going to say this real quickly. I love you when you come to me and you say, here, let me take you wherever. Don't do that, please. If you see me walking, know that I know where I'm going. If you see me hitting my cane against the wall, know that I'm getting my bearings. If you really, really want to say hi to me, say hi to me. But don't say, you know who this is. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Say your name and then say, how you doing? I like that. And I say, I'm doing pretty good. They say, you need any help? And I'll tell you yes or I'll tell you no. If I say no, it is not because I don't like you. It's because I got this. All right? So if you do that, and you do that not just with me, but with any blind person, that will be so much, and they will reward you immensely in many, many ways. You will be rewarded because you'll say, I let this person be the person they can be without me interfering with that process. Church, it is important for us to understand that we are all going through breakthroughs, but we have to go through it. We have to organize, as the National Federation of the Blind said, organize and then struggle. But it is a noble struggle. It is a noble struggle for any group that says, I am somebody in the face of folks saying you're not. It is a noble struggle for any group who says, I am your partner, whether you know it or not. It is a struggle for any group to rise up and move beyond the place that they've been set and establish for themselves, my heart is risen and full of the love that was given to me. I want to give it away. Come on and don't hold back. Amen? Amen. Oh, yeah.
We wanted to open it up to questions from you. If you look at your orders of service, it says in conversation. Does anybody have a question for Gerald or for me? Yes. When did you become a minister?
I became a minister well, let's put it this way. I was ordained in 1976. At that time, I had glasses and contacts and all those good things, and I was able to see the way folks do with books and everything. I didn't have any assistive technology. 1976, that is 43 years ago. 43 years I've been on in the pulpit, or doing good work, I hope.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
One of your
Okay, now that's okay. Here we go. That's a very important question because people. Well, the question is, what of my senses do I feel is most strong? And so that's a myth that people say. Okay, once you go blind, your hearing will increase. Your smell will increase. All those things. That is a myth. That is not what happens. What happens is you begin to pay attention more to your hearing, and you pay attention to the smells, and you pay attention to the touch. So it's not that we have superpowers, that we can hear better or anything like that. That is not what it is. But once again, that came from a sighted person, not you, but a sighted person came up with that myth. Now my alarm is going off. Wow, that's beautiful.
You were short, man, and you're close to the steps. Just,
Yeah, I got it. So the bottom line is, I have no superpowers, but I'm a super guy. Oh.
Yes.
So I know in classrooms now there's a lot of assistive technology for students, but I was wondering if you had any advice for teachers working with students who have sight difficulties and how to help them best.
That's a very good question, and I would. The question is, as a teacher dealing with blind students or people with poor vision, what tools, assistive technology is available for the teachers to help these kids? And I would refer you to the Department of Rehabilitative Services, Division of Visual Services, because they have the tools. And kids can get those tools and they can learn. One of the things that we have gotten away from is Braille. Because you say, well, with all the technology, you don't need to do all that code stuff, Braille. But see, Braille is really important for a child because with the assistive technology, you don't learn how to spell. You don't know numbers. You don't learn all that. You don't know punctuation, all of those things. So Braille is important, not just for the language, but also it is a code. It helps you to understand how to communicate. If I can't get all into it right now, but Braille instruction is crucial. So even those kids that may never have had Braille, if you hook them up with the Department of Rehabilitative Services, Division of Visual Services, they will furnish the teacher to help them.
I would also really recommend listening to a particular episode on the podcast Invisibilia, which is an NPR. Have you heard this episode about becoming Batman? So there are this young man, Daniel. He, I think he was born blind, and he just very naturally learned to see using echolocation. It sounds impossible. It sounds like I'm telling you a story, a fable or a myth, but that's amazing in and of itself, that our brains can adapt and actually create images through sound. But the point he makes is that kids, we set the expectations too low for blind children.
Yes.
He says, it's horrible to walk into a pole, but it's even worse to be not allowed to walk into a pole.
Right.
He taught himself to ride a bicycle when he was 6 years old, and he was completely blind. So this idea of challenging kids, it's controversial, a little bit, his techniques, but if I were a teacher, I would want to hear about the work he does. He encourages blind children to climb a tree, even if it takes them 3 hours to climb a tree, but to see that they're capable of doing it, to have that experience of knowing they're capable of doing it. So pushing past, breaking through our ideas of ourselves is really a part of it.
What's it called, the podcast?
Invisibilia. And it's something about becoming Batman, because bats echolocate.
Yes.
So that might help you find it. Did you have a question in the back? Yep.
Good morning, Reverend Davis.
Good morning.
I'd just like to thank you for all you do for this church and acknowledge you are a super person. You do have a superpower because every time we see you come before us, you've committed everything to memory,
I do.
and that's exceptional.
Well, thank you.
I've actually seen you do wedding ceremonies
Yep.
the same way. So you are a super person, and you have a superpower with your memory.
Brother, thank you so much.
I saw a hand back there, yep.
Barbara, what is the most significant aspect of learning that you came away from this?
When I was a little girl, it's really about not to be afraid. When I was a little girl, we would play this game, if you had to lose a sense or you could only have one sense. I mean, being blind seemed like the most terrifying thing in the world to me, right? I would have rather lost any other sense rather than my sight. I think that's how I have felt most of my life. But after these last 2 weeks, I really feel differently. I really feel like I would be okay. I'm amazed at how present the world is to me when I'm walking with the shades, and how much actually more aware I feel I am. When I walk around the church and I'm noticing the rug change to the floor, and I'm paying attention and I'm present in a way that feels really awake and alive and aware. So I'm much, much less afraid. Okay, let's sing the hymn that Gerald chose for us, except he has something to say, maybe.
No.
Okay.
No. I'm good.
We're going to sing Guide My Feet.
Number 348.
Thank you.
348, Guide My Feet.
You're visiting with us online today. We love connecting with people all across the country and around the world, sharing our powerful message of love beyond belief.
There's something new happening here. You can now join All Souls as a virtual member. Our virtual membership is designed for friends who live outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and who want to engage with All Souls in a meaningful way.
You can be part of an expanding family, a global family really, wherever you are. If you live in Oklahoma,
Ohio,
or Orange County, California,
Canada,
or Cameroon. By becoming a virtual member, you'll be able to deepen your connections with members and friends here in Tulsa and with members wherever you are.
Each week, you'll receive special All Souls content tailored for you, our virtual members. Virtual members have access to pastoral care, to personal prayers, and also receive invitations to exclusive web events.
You can learn more, and if you're ready, you can become a virtual member today by visiting allsoulschurch.org/virtual membership.
We're grateful our ministries are having a positive impact on your life, and we want to share the good news of love beyond belief with more and more people. So no matter what, we need your support to keep this ministry growing and thriving, so please consider making a gift today. You can do so by texting
LOVEBB for Love Beyond Belief to 73256, or simply visit our website. You are a blessing in our lives. May you be blessed
and be a blessing.